なんだろう、この曲かかってればなんか日常も穏やかになればいいなでもいいし、別にこれ聞いて本当にあいつのことムカつくわって思い出したりしてもいいし、なんかなんかそういうものに寄り添うものにとにかくなれば私は嬉しいですね。はい、隣にいるようなものになれば、なんかね、いろいろ難しい時ですけど、寄り添うようなものになればいいなっていうのはすごく思います。はい、大きく変えたいとか、なんかめっちゃ救いたいとかそういうものより、なんかちょっと嬉しくなったとか、ちょっとだけ気持ちが楽になったなとか、そういう寄り添い方ができればいいのかなって思ってます。
お名前は
金子彩乃です。
ありがとうございました。金子彩乃よろしくお願いします。ありがとうございました。ご視聴ありがとうございました。
Have you ever listened to a song at just the right time? It's one of the most beautiful things you can ever experience. In just 3 minutes, a single song can make us feel the most rooted, the most connected, and the most understood. Sometimes it's the instrumental that's the most captivating, or a single verse that really speaks to you, or maybe it was just hearing someone's voice at the right place, at the right time. Sometimes all it takes is 3 minutes to know exactly what you're going through. And I think music is the only medium that can do that. When I first listened to Kaneko Ayano, it was by complete chance. I was listening to some music while studying for an exam one night, and there was one song that came up that sounded different. A song that I didn't recognize at all, but it stood out instantly because of how unique and vintage the sound was. But I didn't know what type of music I was listening to or what was being played. All I knew was that I really liked it. I never heard anything like this before, and so as soon as the song started playing, I stopped everything and listened. I was mesmerized by how aggressive and dramatic her voice sounded. The way the song slowly builds up in volume from the drums, the melodic guitars, and the hi-hats makes you feel like Kaneko Ayano is taking you on this roller coaster that never slows down. Every time you think she's gonna pause and take a breath, she sings another verse even louder. There's storytelling in not only her lyrics, but also the production and the way she presents her cadence. This small snippet that I showed doesn't capture just how beautiful this song really is. So when you get the chance, listen to Romanceigen in its entirety. It's the perfect song that can get you introduced to the many styles that Ayano has in her music. And that's what got me interested in the rest of her discography. In 2012, Kaneko Ayano published her very first album, Inzei Seikatsu, Royalties Life, a small album that only had 5 songs on it. And with that release, Ayano officially began her career as an indie artist. But out of those 5 songs, there was one that stood out from the rest of them. Let Me Hear Happy End, a song that landed her as an opener for an all-girls rock band named Scandal. Scandal had a pretty big audience, at least in comparison to what Kaneko Ayano had, and it was the perfect opportunity to get her name out there. But what really made this tour so special was that it was being performed in Tokyo, a city with one of the largest populations in the world. There's a lot of people in Tokyo. Tens of millions. It's daunting. It's scary. But it's also exciting. And I can only imagine what it was like for Kaneko Ayano to step foot on that stage in Tokyo. There's so many new faces, so many different experiences, and so many people listening to her music for the very first time.
絶対見ていただきたいですいやライブはでももうそれこそでも自分が楽しいのが一番じゃないですか。なんか自分勝手にやったらいいと思いますけどやったらいいと思います。
It was just her and her guitar, and people loved that. The songs that she wrote and the words that she sang reached hundreds and thousands of people on this single tour. Her performances were filled with so much authenticity and passion. Even in retrospect, Rina, one of the members from Scandal, recently made a post reminiscing about just how overwhelming and beautiful her sound was, saying that her art is an extension of who they are. And I think that's why Kaneko Ayano's music speaks to so many people. When you listen to her music, the words, her melodies, and production feel so alive and attached. Her songs are so grounded in who she is as an artist and as a person. Even if it's just for a few minutes, in every song you're able to exist in her art and be in her shoes all at the same time. So after the huge success of Scandal's tour in Tokyo, Ayano walked away with a much larger audience and later releasing her very first full-length album a few years later, adding to the many albums that she would later release throughout her entire discography. But out of every album that she's released, there's one that stands out from them all. An album that has the most beautiful representation of what it means to exist in someone else's art. That album is Shukuzai, an album that shows loneliness in the most understandable and emotional way that I've ever seen done before. The album opens up with a song titled Home Alone. In the first few seconds, Ayano opens up this album with a lot of excitement and hope. She tells us how excited and happy she is because she's finally able to live all alone in an empty house. We're not really told why she feels this way or why she wants to be alone, but you get a sense that she's sort of relieved and finally at peace. It's clear that this is something that she wanted for a very long time. But because of how vague she's being, there's probably a lot more that's going on here than the happy impressions that she's making in this first song. She uses this lovely melody and happy tone to paint an image of what it feels like to be left alone for the very first time. It takes me back to when I was a kid and my parents would let me stay home alone for a day or maybe an entire weekend for the very first time. It's a feeling that you can never forget. Everything felt new and things around the house started to look different. Since there was no one but me, that meant no one could tell me what I couldn't do. So I did everything. The first thing that I did was scream as loud as I could because I felt like I could finally be myself, free from judgment and free from control. It was moments like these where I felt the most comfortable in my own skin. And Ayano illustrates this perfectly using flowers. In the song, she says something along the lines of wanting to buy a bouquet of flowers but not having anywhere to put them. So in the verse after, she's like, okay, well, I'll just buy a vase and put them there, because she can. Being alone means having the freedom to make decisions that make her happy. If she wants to buy some flowers, no one is going to take that away from her. Kaneko Ayano wants to be the one to fill up this empty house with things that matter to her. And it's wonderful that the only thing that she has to worry about right now is where to put a big bouquet of flowers. And that's what this first song is all about. It's about someone who's starting over alone. And this theme is explored more in the following track, Koishii Hibi. The Days I Missed. I love this song. Everything about it just puts you in such a good mood. Her voice, the music, it all just sounds so happy and full of joy. She brings so much energy as she sings about all the things that she gets to do now that she's finally alone. Things that would normally be a headache like laundry becomes less like a chore and more as a way to wind down. She finds herself enjoying smaller moments in her life that she never really gave much attention to. Like being able to finish that manga she started, or finding a vase for that bouquet of flowers that she mentioned before. When you're alone, it feels like you have all the time in the world. No one's waiting for you, no one's depending on you. So you can take your time to do the things you need and want. You don't have to pick and choose, you have time for everything. And Koishii Hibi is a song where Kaneko Ayano takes back and embraces all of the days that she couldn't be selfish. From this day forward, she wants to be more carefree and happy. That's the entire purpose of starting over alone. And we hear more about these feelings in track number 4, Goaisatsu, Greetings. This is what it feels like to be truly free. Just a single person in an empty room playing the guitar and completely letting their voice take over. Ayano's voice in this song is captivating, it's emotional, and it's beautiful. The way her vocals blend and flow together with her guitar just makes you feel so happy and loved. This song speaks to me as someone who's had their emotions suppressed and closed off for far too long. In Ayano's mesmerizing and powerful voice, you hear just how relieving this moment is for her. Being able to prioritize her old happiness has allowed her to rediscover and reconnect with emotions that she's most likely forgotten all about. And hearing this song has been very healing as someone who struggles doing the same. When Ayano sings about not caring where her favorite bookmark went, it's kind of her way of letting us know that she's leaving everything in her past behind. It doesn't matter what she was doing, what obligations or responsibilities she had, or what relationships and people were a part of her life, she's choosing to leave it all behind. So when Ayano sings about buying a new bookmark in the following verse, that's her declaration to start a new chapter, but this time focusing on salvation and love rather than things that don't matter, because those are the moments that are worth living. But there comes a time where being alone slowly starts to lose meaning, and that initial freedom and happiness shapes into something else entirely. Which brings us to track number 5, Jet Coaster. For the first time in the album, we hear a song that has a completely different tone. It's less optimistic and less cheerful. Ayano expresses themes of fear and anxiety, and she uses the analogy of a roller coaster to describe the sudden shift of emotions and reality. Just moments ago, she was telling us how excited, hopeful, and thrilled she was in finally being able to live her life all alone. A life where she doesn't have to worry, a life where codependency doesn't exist, and a life where happiness is always there. To Ayano, being alone was the one answer to all of it. But now she's conflicted, and all of a sudden she's having opposing thoughts about it, which is terrifying to her because this was the one thing in her life that she's always dreamed about. And yet here she is, scared and unable to sleep at night. Night is when loneliness feels the most heavy, and it's also when we start overthinking and where our own anxiety thrives. I can't count how many times I've had sleepless nights where I would just stay up overanalyzing and reflecting on the same memories over and over again. But I also recognize that even though it's moments like these where I felt the most vulnerable, it was also when I felt the most honest. And I think for Ayano, she's anxious about whether or not she's being honest with herself. Does she really want to be alone, or is it something else? In this song, Ayano paints this beautiful image of her looking up at the night sky by herself where it's completely dark, and she points out that she can't see any of the stars.
夜を迎える星は見えないけれど君が分かってくれるならこの街も悪くはないね
This is when she opens up honestly and tells us that she finds comfort knowing that even if she can't see the stars, she knows that their presence will always be there. On these lonely nights where it's just her and her thoughts, it's these stars that really make her feel understood and noticed, a feeling that she honestly misses. To me, this entire song is about Kaneko Ayano reflecting on the times where her life was filled with affection and relationships with others, and coming to terms with herself that not every single moment was bad. There were some worth remembering and people that she misses, and these restless nights are proof of that. Which then brings us to the next song, Josho Prologue. For the first time in the album, Kaneko Ayano opens up about what it's like to be with someone. Up until this point, she's only really told us one side of her story, the story of her wanting to be alone. But in this song, we get to hear a different side of that story, the side of her that wanted to be with someone. So she starts this song off by being very vulnerable and honest, telling us about a time when she was very close to someone, and she sings about how being sad was never a thing when they were together. But in the song before this one, Jet Coaster, we were shown how Ayano's imposing decision to be alone left her scared and sad. And those were the feelings that she was trying to escape from. But somehow these feelings ended up finding her again even though she was alone. So at this point she's confused and torn. Was she happier back then with someone else, or is she happier right now alone? And I think this song marks a shift in the album where those two thoughts start to collide and Ayano's perspective of loneliness starts to change. Later in the song, Ayano sings a verse about not wanting to know about the world she lives in, and she says it in a way that's bitter and resentful. Being alone has given her so much time to reflect and feel new things. She's growing and understanding herself more than she's ever had before. But alongside all of that, she finds herself developing feelings that she never wanted to know about. She never wanted to know how scared she would be during those lonely nights. She never wanted to know how anxious she was. She never wanted to learn anything about herself that would make her second guess about staying alone forever. But the more time Kaneko Ayano spends by herself, the further her desire to be alone slips away. This song is relatable and sentimental to me. In the moments where we want to be alone, ignorance becomes bliss. If we never knew about all of the moments where we were happy, carefree, and hopeful with another person, I think it would be so much easier to just give all of that up and shut ourselves out from the world. But because those moments exist, it makes it harder to leave it all behind. Josho is a song that shows Kaneko Ayano reflecting on her knowledge and experience with others and being honest about how unrealistic it is to just throw it away and forget about it, which is why she sings about wishing she never knew anything about the world. There were moments where she wanted to be with someone, and that's a feeling that she just can't pretend to be ignorant about. At the end of the day, it's a part of who she is, and she was only able to recognize this because it's gone. I want you to keep in mind these first two lines in Romance Seigen, where she says that there are toys hidden under her desk laughing and mocking at her. It'll be important later on. Ayano starts the song off by telling us that she's hiding something. Hiding a set of toys under her desk, and she sings about how she doesn't want to acknowledge or speak about them, which right away sounds kind of odd. But then she describes these toys as sweet chocolate, telling us that she'll be deeply hurt if she chooses to speak about whatever she's hiding under that desk. And I think Ayano uses chocolates as a brilliant way to tell us that she's having cravings. A craving and a desire to let go of whatever she's hiding. But just like chocolates, there's always going to be some guilt and regret after eating them, and that's what's holding her back. And this is the point where tension starts to build, not only in her lyrics but the actual production and rhythm. The song gets faster and faster as Ayano is fighting against her cravings to show us what she's hiding. You can hear how much louder and aggressive Ayano's tone becomes as she's trying to convince herself to keep what's under that desk hidden. And it almost sounds like she's panicking, saying that she's freezing at night and telling us how she's becoming weaker. The song is getting louder, the instruments are getting more violent, and she's singing in a much faster tone. Now, right after that change in tone, we get to hear the very first line of the song once again. But Ayano intentionally swaps the word toys with love, which tells us that she wasn't actually hiding toys under her desk. What she's truly been doing is suppressing her desire to be loved. She doesn't want to admit that she needs it. The entire point of her leaving everything behind was so that she wouldn't need anyone anymore. And it's these thoughts about love that mock and laugh at her decision to push everyone away, because none of that is possible if she keeps isolating herself, and she knows that. Kaneko Ayano's desire to be alone has been slipping since the second half of this album. This small change in wording tells us a lot about how her perspective is changing. There's internal conflict that's happening between her genuine feelings and what she thought she wanted. Deep down, there's a part of her that still wants to be loved by someone else. But the thing about Kaneko Ayano is that she's stubborn. Later in the song, Ayano finally admits that it's getting bad. Day by day, the absence of love has slowly built this storm inside of her that she's been ignoring. But even so, she chooses to pretend like everything is completely fine in order to move on to the next day. Because in her mind, if she doesn't give it attention, it doesn't have to exist. So she stays in denial and declares war against romance, telling herself once again that she's better off being alone. It doesn't matter how bad she's hurt every single day. She doesn't want love from any person, and she doesn't want to give it to anyone else. And that decision is made clear from this point on.
お湯を沸かしてコーヒー飲むのよおしゃれな出窓に花を飾って大きな犬の横にはロマンスそろそろロマンスどうにかしなくちゃ
Once again, the song shifts into this panic mode where Ayano starts getting defensive and aggressive. But this time, it's all towards her inner conflict with romance. She then starts to list all the different ways she can find love, mentioning things like being with a big dog, decorating her house with flowers, and making coffee. But never once does she ever mention love in the context with another person. And that's because Ayano wants to believe that she can replace that feeling entirely. But at the end of it all, you have to be honest. Being with another human is an entirely different kind of love. A love that can't be replaced with anything else. And Ayano knows that better than anyone else.
世の中の小さなお花かもしれないけど関係ないでしょ私の横には決まってロマンスそろそろロマンスどうにかしなくちゃ
This song has so many layers to it. Kaneko Ayano goes from being dishonest at the very start to being vulnerable to staying in denial until the very end, all in 2.5 minutes. And it's hearing how these emotions are progressing in her voice and the production that makes this song so authentic and beautiful. We get to hear the inner struggles that Ayano is having with herself through this entire song. Is her will in wanting to stay alone stronger than her desires for intimacy and love? Does she still believe loneliness is the only way to keep herself safe? Is she willing to sacrifice that protection to once again be with someone? Is she ready to move on and try again? All of these conflicts are explored more in track number 11, Grapefruit.
眠いあ昼過ぎの各駅電車がちょうどいい
This song opens up with Kaneko Ayano feeling exhausted and tired. And if you were to compare this song to Home Alone, track number 1, you can see how much she's changed. That optimism and hope that she started off with is nowhere to be found. Her excitement and joy for her days alone are completely gone. And at this point, Ayano is truly lost. So in this song, Ayano decides to go on a train with no destination.
よだれを垂らす頃には花畑に魚が泳いでる As
Ayano is riding this train, she tells us that she's starting to see things. Things like fish swimming in a field of flowers. And I think this verse here is to show us how detached Ayano has become with her life right now. She's overwhelmed with all of these new thoughts and feelings that she never wanted to know about. Everything that she's given up and sacrificed to get where she is now has been meaningless. All the people she cut ties with, every relationship she's broken, every person she left behind to be alone, it was all for nothing. All it ever did was leave her feeling empty. Her life now has shown her that she's made the wrong choice. So as Ayano is riding this train, she starts reflecting, thinking about how she wants to live now. In the chorus that Ayano sings, she slowly starts reattaching herself back to the present. Over and over again, she thinks about who she wants to be and what she wants right now. And before she makes her final decision, she keeps in mind every single emotion that she's felt, especially those that she's been denying.
さよならはいつも辛い約束
before Ayano moves on, she sings about one last goodbye. And I think she's saying this to all of the feelings that go against what she wants right now. The excitement that she had for staying home alone, the joy that she expressed for starting a new chapter, and the happiness that she thought loneliness could give her, none of these things ever lasted. In the end, the one thing that she was avoiding the most is what she needs right now. But she's scared. She's scared of putting down that giant shield of isolation and loneliness that's always been there to protect her. She doesn't know what's going to happen if she tries to open herself up again. Will she be judged for her flaws and vulnerabilities? What happens when she's rejected? Can she truly find someone to rely and love? One quick thing that I wanted to point out is Ayano's usage of the word grapefruit throughout the entire song. And I think this is her way of telling us that she's had a bittersweet relationship with loneliness. She's sad to say goodbye, but happy for all of the things that she's understood from it. She's thankful for the times where she could be alone, but is looking forward to the days where she doesn't need to anymore. And finally, she tells us what she wants. Which brings us to the last song on the album, Shukujitsu Holiday. Ayano opens up this last song with a lot of vulnerability. She has so many thoughts going through her mind and a lot of anxiety about being with someone again. It's been so long since the last time she's talked to anyone, so she doesn't want to mess that up, not for herself or the other person she has in mind. She wants everything to go perfect. She then tells herself over and over again to not be nervous, to not show any signs of anxiety, and if she does, to make sure that it's suppressed so that no one can see it. She wants to be seen as composed as possible when she finally meets that certain person again. She's scared that showing her anxiety and being vulnerable will make her hated. The idea of not wanting to be hated is exhausting, and it completely takes control over how we want to live. When Ayano tells herself don't be anxious over and over again, it's more so because she's scared that showing her anxiety will make others uncomfortable. She doesn't want to be hated because of her awkwardness, her worries, or her lack of confidence. So in her mind, she tells herself to hide it, to get rid of it, and to make sure that no one ever sees that side of her. But it doesn't matter how many times we tell ourselves not to be nervous or not to be anxious, that feeling is a part of who we are, and it's a part of who Kaneko Ayano is. Ayano then shares her worries about making eye contact, and it's small gestures like these that are the hardest to do, especially for someone who's been so closed off and deprived of being with someone. It's the first thing that Ayano needs to overcome, but her anxiety is telling her all of these intrusive thoughts and scaring her away from what she wants. So for now, Ayano watches them from afar, and she's careful not to get their attention, but at the same time waiting for the courage to do so. As Ayano spends her time standing there being indecisive and anxious, she watches that person walk away from her view, which leaves her with two choices: give up or go after them. And this is the moment where Ayano changes her words from "I won't be anxious" to "I'm going to give it a shot."
いよよいつまで一人でいる気だよ飽きないな若気の至りか気持ちの問題かあとは抱き合って確かめて
After denying and bottling her emotions for so long, Ayano finally breaks down and asks herself, how much longer can she stay alone? How much longer is she going to do this to herself? And when she questions whether this is a matter of youthful mistakes or a matter of feelings, she's once again questioning her desires. Is her current desire to be with someone again just another dumb young mistake she's going to deeply regret later, just like she found with loneliness? Or is this actually how she genuinely feels and wants? But if there's one thing that Ayano has learned about herself through this entire album and this whole journey, it's that trying to predict how she will feel will get her nowhere. And so this time, Ayano doesn't choose to stay alone and try to figure everything out herself. She chooses to embrace the person she wants to meet and let her heart and emotions take over from there. That's the only way Ayano will know if she made the right choice.
飽きないな若気の至りかどうでもいいことだこれからの話をしよう祝日どこに行きたいとか
And she finds her answer with a simple question.
結構すぐ諦めますね。それ無理だなっつって。
音楽作っててもそうです。
音楽作ってる時は粘ります。
粘りますよね。
やっぱりそうなんですね。
そうか。やっぱりその恋愛的な。
これからもっと頑張っていこうって感じなんで、本当にちょっとずつでいいので自分が頑張って広がっていけばいいなっていう。
広がるでしょうね。
Every song that Kaneko Ayano has written is filled with so much love and care. From the sounds to the lyrics to the presentation, she makes it all mesmerizing and impossible to look away. Shukuzai is an album that represents loneliness in such a relatable and familiar way. It's an album that means so much to me. Kaneko Ayano's cadence, her songs, and her storytelling has this power to just speak to your soul and know exactly what you're going through. And as you're listening to her music, you can't help but exist in their art. And that's what makes Kaneko Ayano's music so special.